Welcome back to another edition of the SHU Hockey Podcast. Joining us is the SHU athletic trainer, Ben St. Martin. Ben, for those listeners out there that don't know what athletic trainer is, give us a brief rundown of what your profession is and what you kind of do with the team.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Basically, an athletic trainer is somebody who is in charge of pretty much all the medical side for the entire team. So an athletic trainer, they have a degree, a bachelor's degree in athletic training or a master's degree in athletic training from an accredited program somewhere in the country. And you sort of go through, you take a national certification exam after you get your degree in athletic training, and then whatever state that you decide to practice in, 49 of the states are governed by the health department of the state. So an athletic trainer is a licensed health professional by each and every individual state, in almost every state in this country. So it's something that, our profession is not necessarily really well recognized widely, but we definitely are becoming more in the forefront recently. We're moving more towards a master's degree as well over the next couple of years. But back to more like what I do for the team. So with the team specifically, I'm there every single day for whatever they need with their health. So if, the beginning of the year, it's sort of checking in with the guys, seeing how the summer went for them, or, doing an evaluation on a freshman or transfer, sort of seeing where their body is at. And then, getting their insurance information taken down, any type of pertinent history in their medical history or anything like that. And as the season goes on, it's sort of, knowing what the guys need on a certain day or how an injury is affecting a certain guy, or referring them to a doctor on a certain day if they get injured during practice or a game, sending them over for an x-ray, if they're sick, sending them over to student health or to our general medicine doctor. It's basically, so I'm like a liaison for our guys to direct them in the direction that they need to go for whatever medical reason they may need. A lot of it I handle in-house, but things that need to get sort of sent up the chain to a different health professional, I have relationships in line to help them out with that.
So I'm going to dive right into COVID-19. How has that added to your responsibilities? Added to how has it changed your job? How has it affected you in the season? Obviously, it was very abrupt.
Yeah, it's the way the season ended last year was obviously very interesting and quick, and didn't really know what to expect going forward. This year has been extremely. It's just everything's been an unknown, and we've sort of said before we got on here, the next morning that you wake up, something that I planned for the day before could be completely turned on its head. But this year, things have changed significantly. I don't just work for the hockey team here. I do work for other sports teams as well. I work with men's and women's golf. I work with the swimming and diving team here. I have other administrative responsibilities that, since COVID have sort of been shifted around in some of our staff members. So I'm also in charge of the concussion protocol revisions and implementing those in our department. And I've also this year with Atlantic Hockey been on the committee for return to play. So there's a group of coaches, administrators, athletic trainers, our commissioner that, we've been meeting once a week for 7 or 8 weeks now, I think, trying to put together a protocol for us to follow as a league. And that's been definitely the biggest change in administrative type work that I've been doing. And it's definitely been a challenge and something that I never saw myself having to take the reins on, but it's been a good experience to be part of that for sure. But as far as everyday life goes, you guys have seen it around campus, from mask wearing to social distancing, physical distancing, to checking in at the front of every single building, getting your temperature taken. We started off on July 1st with football workouts, and I was one of the athletic trainers sort of at the back door there, regulating who was coming in and out of the building, asking symptoms and signs of COVID-19 to every single person when they walked in before they came in and had their workout for the day. And that was a good buffer for us to sort of just have one team and sort of see how it would go with a limited number of people. And as the semester came around, we sort of worked more towards having a system in place with work studies at the front door and being able to check and make sure everybody wasn't having symptoms on their phone app, which was, definitely a good step in the right direction. And having to check everyone's temperature. And as far as in the athletic training room, we had to space everything out. So we moved actually one of the athletic training areas upstairs into the pit center, right where the basketball courts are, which was brand new for us. And obviously, if you guys walk through there, you see that there's another strength and conditioning area up there as well. So that's all for physical distancing purposes, so that our max capacity for treating athletes in the downstairs main athletic training room in the pit right now is only 9 people. And on a given day, when we have almost 1,200 athletes, varsity athletes in the school, you're going to need to fit more than 9 people going in and out of the door at one time, especially with practice times and class times and stuff. So those are some of the certain day-to-day things that we've seen. We're utilizing our brand new athletic training room over at the Bobby Valentine Center a lot more as well, which is a blessing and a curse in certain aspects of it. With everyone being spread out, it's not as close-knit of an athletic training family as we've had in the past, but we're making it work.
What I wanted to ask you is, you went on to talk about how you're now on the board with Atlantic Hockey about the protocols on how to get the season back on track. What has that been like? And obviously hockey is going to be completely different from what we're used to seeing, especially in college hockey. What has kind of been the forefront of the idea that Atlantic Hockey is trying to push for this season?
A lot of our talks have been, it ranges from week to week on what type of topics, but usually it's testing that we're talking about, timing of testing, waiting for the NCAA to come out with recommendations for our grouping of sport and how we should proceed, so that we don't necessarily put a guideline in place that isn't going to be in line, or at least the bare minimum of what the NCAA is going to require of us. So a lot of it is sort of discussing what we think might happen, and then waiting for something to come out and reacting to that, and then putting it into motion in the actual document itself. I'm not necessarily saying I'm sitting there writing this document myself. It's more of medical advice that I'm sort of giving to the committee themselves, and they sort of take that information in, and we collect surveys of different questions from each school that's in the league, and sort of see where they're at in their protocols on campus and how things are going with them. So it's been just a lot of information and data collection and crunching, to be honest with you.
So you mentioned you're also the athletic trainer for a couple other sports. You said men's and women's golf. I think you mentioned swimming and diving as well. What's significant about hockey, and especially hockey at SHU?
For me, I mean, when I'm in season with hockey, it just the difference for me is that I'm there a lot more with them. Being a high contact, high injury risk type sport, that is where we direct our resources towards the most. So some of the other sports that I work with, I spend a lot of time with them as far as rehab and injury evaluation goes in the athletic training room. But when it comes to men's ice hockey specifically, I'm at every single practice. Pre-practice, post-practice, treatments, actually being on site for the practice if in case a high impact type collision or a medical emergency needs to be attended to. And then I'm on the road with them as well. And obviously they're setting up for every single type of game day situation for a home game. And I'm on the road to every single away game that we go to as well. So that's the main difference right there, is just the day-to-day interaction and the amount of time that I actually spend with this team.
Last year we had a small conversation because I was interested in the job you do for the hockey team. What is the difference between what you could do compared to what you can't do given an injury? And if I'm correct, you mentioned last year that there's always a medical doctor at every hockey rink. So what comes to a point where they have to go see them rather than come see you?
That's a great question. So at Division I hockey, it is required, especially in our league specifically. There's always a medical doctor in the building, and there's always an ambulance crew in the building. That is a requirement across the board. And as athletic trainers, our medical license falls underneath a physician above us. So pretty much every decision that we make is in a protocol and signed off by a physician above us. And the doctor that I work with specifically For hockey, most of the time, he is there in case anything happens that is sort of above my head or scope of practice that he needs to step in on. A lot of times that's going to be lacerations during a hockey game, to be honest with you. Athletic trainers are not allowed to perform stitches or sutures, or even put in staples to a certain laceration if that's the way that they want to go with it. So on a game day, a doctor is there specifically to assist in emergency situations, help evaluate more significant concussion type injuries, help in situations where you may need stitches on a certain athlete. Obviously, those are the main situations that we would need them during a game.
So you talked a little bit about earlier about how you kind of get started as an athletic trainer, but you can use yourself as an example here. How does someone get started on that career path, like coming out of high school, going into college, majoring in something like athletic training or sports medicine, and then ending up working for a Division I university like Sacred Heart?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could just walk you through sort of what I did. It's not necessarily going to apply too much going forward in certain aspects of it due to the way that the accreditation committee is sort of going in the direction of moving to a master's degree. But for somebody today that's going into college, if you want to try and get into this type of job, you're going to want to be in some type of science for an undergraduate degree. Exercise physiology or exercise science, biology, basically something that's going to give you a lot of core science classes. And then you're going to have to go on and find one of the accredited master's programs in athletic training. That's what everything's moving towards in the next couple of years here. There aren't too many bachelor degree undergraduate programs left currently. But for myself, I sort of recognized athletic training as a senior in high school. I grew up in Northeastern Connecticut originally and went to an open house type workshop session at UConn with Dr. Doug Casa, who was running the program in that open house at that time. And I didn't know a ton about athletic training going into it, but I came out of that open house like eyes wide open. I was like, this is a way for me to stay in athletics for a profession, work with top level athletes every single day, be a part of a team, watch people get better, apply my knowledge in the sciences and sort of stay in the things that I liked. I grew up playing hockey. I grew up playing golf. I wanted to stay a part of a team if I could. And it was really something that appealed to me. So I went through the program. I ended up getting a master's degree out in Minnesota. And I chose that specifically because I was able to work with a hockey team out there as well at the Division III level at St. John's University. Saw a lot of great hockey out there, worked with a lot of great people out there. And then when it came time to get a full-time job for me, it was time to pay my dues. It was take whatever job was open, whatever I could get my hands on. I knew I wanted to work hockey, but I knew I needed to work my way up and become a professional and become well-rounded as well. So a job opportunity came up at the University of Bridgeport, which is actually just down Park Ave from Sacred Heart. And I took that job right out of grad school about a month after I got out of Minnesota and came back here, worked there for 6 years. It was a great 6 years down there. I worked a lot of different sports, primarily men's soccer, women's basketball, softball, and baseball. And it really opened my eyes to the way that different sports operate, the way that different levels of collegiate athletes or in athletics operates, some administrative things that I hadn't seen as an undergrad, and then sort of just through, the grapevine and honestly playing some adult league hockey with some people that work at SHU, eventually, worked my way over to Sacred Heart when I found that the previous athletic trainer was moving on to a new position. So it turned into one of those, the people is a good thing type situation.
I want to ask you this question. Going back to last season, with what we know now about the severity of the coronavirus, was there ever a point last year as a trainer of multiple teams on campus where you noticed people were not feeling well and nobody knew what it was? But looking back on it, do you think there was potentially coronavirus cases like throughout the athletic teams here on campus?
That is a good question, and I will definitely not confirm or deny one way or the other. As not being a medical doctor, I will state that there was definitely multiple people in the athletic department on teams that we noticed were getting sick around that time. But I'll be honest with you, it's a pretty common time for a lot of
Right.
people to get sick.
Right.
It did seem a little bit unusually high around that time. But I can't, necessarily go back in time and put my finger on a certain team or amount of cases that was like, that was definitely COVID or, something along those lines. Um, it, Before anyone in our area sort of knew exactly what COVID looked like, we were completely shut down and off campus by that point. So it's a good question, and it's probably a high possibility if you have to be honest with the situation, but nothing I can really point to be honest.
So you go to all the practices, you go to all the games. From a spectator point of view, how do you think the team looks this year?
Honestly, I would love to say that I have gotten so much time to watch this team, and that a regular year I would have spent so much time in the locker room and on the ice with these guys, but it's been so pulled back, and so it's just so different this year. My time watching these guys has been a lot less. But saying that, the few practices that I've gotten to go to and watched a scrimmage or two, they look ready to go. They look quick. They look fast. They look great on the forecheck, like we always are, and ready to go. Like I said, that we would have already been a month into the season if coronavirus hadn't happened, and I would have had a much better picture on what our new players look like, what our transfer players look like, how the team was shaping up, power play lines, what guys are gelling well. We haven't even really gotten to that point yet. But at a very basic level, for someone that's sort of watched, 10 or 12 practices here and there this year, I think they look great. And I think, after seeing today's coaches poll come out, we'll be ready to go.
I want to go back to the big moment that we've all had last year. After the bad year that we've been through, 2020 can't get any worse, you may think. But it started off with a pretty good moment, and that was a CTI's tournament. And that was right about January, right when the new year started, and then it all went downhill from there. That's my high point of the year. As a staff member of the team, walk us through the CTI's tournament. We heard Scott McDougal's point of view. We heard an alumni from Justin Danforth. And we heard from Mark Johnson, who was a captain of that team. Now, from your standpoint, what was that moment like for you?
It really was amazing on so many different levels. I'll sort of take it back to a couple of weeks or months beforehand, where even just the planning portions of it on my side with the logistics, there was a lot going on in the sports medicine realm that I needed to help plan. Being the only athletic trainer that works out of that building, I needed to make sure that we were going to have enough equipment for every single AT to be able to access during the game, and there was going to be enough water, there was going to be enough tables for them to use, we were going to have an area for them to perform their treatments, and just sort of the changeover in between the two games. It's not common that we have two Division I games going on in that building at one time. So that was definitely a new thing for me to experience as well, but again, a good experience. And then leading into the tournament itself, it was, we were talking about it for over a year leading into it, and the hype was high. We were playing really well. We came off a couple of really, highlight type wins against, BU, and a couple of really good sweeps in conference going into that tournament. I had a lot of friends in town. I had family in town. I had people watching on SNY on television. It was a different atmosphere that in my 3 years, I had not even come close to experiencing before. And I was sort of sitting there before the tournament. It's like, are we going to show up? Are we going to really be this team that we've been all year in this tournament and the big stage? And that, you don't necessarily want to question that, but a couple of questions come across your mind about it. And then to watch the support that we've got from our administration, from our student body, from our staff, and to go out there and to perform the way that we did in such, emphatic fashion. It was amazing to watch some of the skilled goals, some of the skilled plays that were on display, taking it to two of the best teams in the country in front of our home crowd. It was something that had never really been done before at Sacred Heart in general. And, everybody on our bench, everybody, from the top down knew how important that was for us in our program and how special our team was and how close we all were. And it was a really great moment.
Jack, I know you want to ask another question, but I just want to add on to that. What was funny about that whole tournament was SNY had like the press box area where Sacred Heart and Quinnipiac's video management staff, whatever you want to call it, would be sitting in. And they pushed us maybe to the left side, right where the fans usually sit. So me and Heitzy, Craig Height, and Matt Noche were literally sitting right on top of the fans. And to hear like the fans react to a goal, a penalty, and this call was really something. And it was so loud in that arena. It's probably the loudest I'll ever hear that arena until we have CT Ice again, hopefully. And to hear the announcer say that this team is very special, that really does mean a lot to a team like Sacred Heart that has been under the rug for quite some time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talked about me being a spectator at certain points as well. I mean, a lot of times that, I'm watching the game differently than a spectator does, but there are those moments during a game where I sit back and just say, man, I've got some of the best seats in the house right now. And to watch a couple of the goals and reactions of our guys with all of those fans in the background that, we don't necessarily get night in and night out, and the support that, they got, and the guys looking out into the crowd just getting excited just to see the support that they had. It was something that I'll never forget, and hopefully that we continue to build on in this program's future.
So last week we had on Captain Mark Johnstone, and obviously, Will, and anyone who will watch the podcast last week, he's a natural leader. So Ben, can you talk about how he's played a leadership role in conversations with you?
Yeah, I mean, Mark is a kid that came in as a freshman pretty much the day that I got hired, and he's a part of the group that's my first graduating class as a person being here. We started off on the same foot on the same day. It's really funny that you asked me that question, actually. I wasn't prepared for that, but I remember one of the first days that I met Mark. He came into the athletic training room and he was like, Ben, hey, what's going on? I'm Mark. Nice to meet you. We're taking this stuff over, man. And I didn't really know what he meant by that, but he was like, I'm here to make a statement, is what he was saying to me. And it was literally within a few minutes of meeting him. So that just says right there, like, what his drive is, what his mental focus has been for this team and about this team since the second he got here. And he's just molded into an amazing individual and leader on this team, as you guys already have alluded to. And he's definitely taken that role on even more this year. Last year being assistant captain, I think he is a great voice for the guys. I think he speaks with his actions as well, and knows when to speak up and when to let his play say everything he needs it to say. But he's someone that everyone on the team loves, can turn to and respect, and knows that he's going to make a decision that's best for the team.
Ben, my last question for me is, I want you to talk about the relationship that you have with the coaching staff, with the players, and just with the staff in general, because when I walked in the doors as a freshman, as a work study position, I walked in kind of nervous and kind of, didn't know what to expect. But the way that Maddie, came up to me, spoke to me, Scott, CJ, at that time, Paul, the way you and all the players, it kind of made me feel more at home. Do you get that sense even before you are at the point where you are now? And talk about the relationship that you have with the coaches and the players and everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I want to continue to be part of a team and use that as something that I do as a profession, right? Like, you spend this amount of time with people and they sort of become your family away from home, right? At first, obviously, you sort of have to feel the situation out and, get to know everybody. But, within a few weeks or a month or two, spending that much time with each other, you get to know each other really well. And we have a great group of people from the top down, from CJ to our support staff. Me and Maddie spent so much time together at the rink, getting stuff ready for the guys and just making sure that everything's nice and neat, clean, ready to go. Keith in the strength and conditioning department, you guys helping out every game and traveling with us on the road and everything. You know, we spend 10 hours on a bus and 2 or 3 nights at a hotel together and a bunch of meals together every other weekend. You know, we end up having a bunch of conversations with each other. We get to know each other's families and what's going on at home. And that's definitely part of what keeps me going as an athletic trainer and wanting to come to work every day, wanting to be at the rink every day. Like something hilarious or funny or emotional happens every single day at work, and you don't need to force it. You just show up and it just sort of happens, and it's unpredictable, and yeah, I love it.